In my mind, I heard very clearly, subtitle, "We'll kill the white woman later." Peace and blessings be upon you. My name is Lauren Booth. I'm a journalist and an author, and soon to be a playwright, if Allah wills, inshallah. I'd like to share with you a small snippet of my personal journey to Islam. I grew up in a Christian household. My mother was a superstitious Christian, so she would buy crosses and hang them around the flat to ward off evil spirits. My dad was a lapsed Catholic, so he didn't believe in organized religion, but he always believed in one God. When I was a child, I always used to pray. In fact, my mum a couple of weeks ago rang me and said, "The family have been talking about how you've become an extremist." And I said, "Okay, why have I become an extremist?" She said, "Well, you were always a weird kid. You were always praying." And I thought back and I thought, yeah, I was. Even very young child, I would ask God, "Please God, bless Mummy and Daddy, please God, take my younger sister away, she's horrible." I'm happy to say she's still with us today, thanks be to God. And so I had this fervent natural belief, this joyful, looking to the stars and asking God. But in the Western world, in fact, let's just say in the modern world, it's not easy when you hit your teens to hold on to that rope of iman, that rope of belief. Because a couple of things happen, right? First of all, your hormones kick in, and that brings a whole plethora of interests and issues and questions and distractions. And then secondly, the ego explodes. It's like being, I describe teenage years in the modern context as being a 3-year-old in a 13-year-old's body. I know what I want, I know what to do, and you're being told this and you're getting this messaging, and it's really, really difficult. I can only say this, I'm not being critical, I'm saying I remember shouting in my beautiful grandfather's face when I was 14 years old and he was 60. And he'd been part of several invasions in the Second World War. He'd been part of the D-Day landings. He travelled around the world as a soldier, and I literally yelled in his face, I'd never been anywhere. "What do you know about life? You know nothing." SubhanAllah. So the arrogance that comes in, and so I stopped praying. Pretty much by the time I was 15, I was smoking cannabis, and for a Friday night, I'd fill up a McDonald's Coke with vodka, and then came boys, and off you go. You're just, I'm not going to say that, I was so sad, and then, but confused, didn't know why I existed, capable of hurting people, selfish, yeah, definitely all of those things. So I wasn't looking to get back into faith. I was running around making a life in dunya, and quite successfully. If you believe success is all material things, then in 2008, for example, I had a husband and I had 2 wonderful children and a farmhouse in the south of France which had a swimming pool. And I was working really hard on making that material life, and also, giving my kids an outdoor life as well. There were good elements to it. But I was also doing a lot of stuff that was really toxic for a good marriage. And my husband at the time, alcohol is not a good thing. That's all I'm going to say. Alcohol adds nothing to family life. Destroyed my parents' family life, and it had a huge impact on my family life as an adult as well. So what is the moment? I think when people watch Convert to Islam videos, everybody's like, what is the moment then? Okay, so you've come from here, what is the moment? And for me, I was breastfeeding my first daughter in the year 2000, and I was sitting in a London flat. She was about a couple of weeks old, and a photo came on the television that would just change everything for my heart. Because once, as a woman, when you give birth for the first time, it's like you've had all your skin taken off. It's like you've lost all the hardness and all of the protection of your skin, and you're so sensitive that when you turn on the news and you've got this little precious gift, you think, please don't let anything bad have happened today. Please let every child, you start asking again. And so a child came on the evening news, and he had his back to the camera. It was a photo, and he was holding something in his hand and facing a tank. And the news wanted to tell me that the tank was heroic and the boy was a terrorist. But I saw a terrorizing tank and a heroic child with a stone protecting his village. And I was just thinking, there's a mother somewhere saying, where's my son? Where's Faris? Why isn't he here doing his homework? What time do you think he'll be back? And that boy was Faris O'Day from a place I didn't know called the Gaza Strip, and a specific refugee camp called the Rafah refugee camp. And 9 days later, actually around that time, he was shot by an Israeli sniper. The bullet hit his neck, and at 15 years old he bled to death on the ground, on the floor of his refugee camp, protecting his family with a stone. Now that, you can never explain how that put something in me. Only Allah knows, only God knows why that led me on this course, but for me that is a significant moment. And 5 years later, when I was living in France, I found myself walking into my editor's office at a major newspaper and like having an out-of-body experience, saying crazy words, and the words were, I want to go to Palestine. I did not want to go to Palestine. But the words came out, I want to go to Palestine. I did not want to go. I was scared. Why would I go to a place that was in a war zone? I wasn't a war journalist. I didn't know Arabic. I'd never reported from a conflict zone. I wrote about hairstyles, political gossip, and living in France. I did not write about the Middle East. But when God has a plan for you, you will go in the direction of that plan. And my editor, perhaps a bit mischief in his mind, said, fine, go and cover the Palestinian elections. Here's the money you need, here are the contacts, off you go. So I found myself in 2005, January, in the West Bank. And I realized on day one, when I met the guards of Mahmoud Abbas, I got a real scoop. I got a big interview with Mahmoud Abbas, who was about to become the first leader of the Palestinian Authority. And I was taken to meet him by two of his security guards, who, guess what? They were Arabs. Well, we're in Palestine. Guess what? They were armed. Well, they are protecting a political leader. Shall I say that again? Arabs with guns. I'd seen too many movies, watched too much news to not be afraid of them. Two big guys with guns. And I remember one of the men had a walkie-talkie, and he looked at me and he said, Inshallah. And to me, in my mind, I heard very clearly, subtitle, we'll kill the white woman later. And I realized that I had Arabophobia. That they could have been saying, it's lovely to see you, how's your birthday celebration? And I still would have heard, we'll kill the white woman later. But the incredible thing is that just 3 days later, having traveled on my own around the West Bank, I was in love with the people, and I was falling in love with their faith. I was Christian. I went to the West Bank seeking Jesus, and the Muslims didn't put me off Jesus. The Muslims showed me the sites where Jesus had walked, where he preached. They loved him. I'm like, why are you speaking about Jesus? Don't you know how much we love him? So I had my faith reawakened in the Holy Land. But I also started to ask questions. Who are these amazing people with patience, whose children are being shot in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jenin, in Nablus, who are being persecuted in Jerusalem and all around their own lands, their own areas? And yet they say sabr, patience, and shukr, thanks, and alhamdulillah on the rubble of their home, thanks be to God. And yet my bad day was, if I had a deadline that was tight, or one of my stilettos broke in the rain, worst day ever. No, sitting on the rubble of your home, worst day ever. And they were grateful. So I was learning things concepts, humility, patience, gratitude, they were all slowly being awoken within me. And in 2008, I went back to Gaza, and it was Ramadan. And I spent the whole month of Ramadan there, by the grace of God. And I'm so grateful for that, because I got to be with, at that time, the most oppressed people in the Muslim world. And they taught me so much. And one day I was taking meat in Ramadan to feed a poor family in the Rafah refugee camp. This is what always amazes me, that without me having planned it, I was in the exact place where Faris O'Day, that boy who I'd watched on TV, had lived his life and died, and I was there in Ramadan. And I took the meat to this family, and I think they're doing some repairs here. Subhanallah, bismillah. I took the meat to the family and I knocked on a door, and the mother greeted me, so happy, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I thought, please don't let this be another miserable existence and another miserable empty shell of a home. And I walked in and it was one room. Cold, even in the heat. There was no carpets, there was no TV, there were no photos of friendly family members. There was just a rug where everybody slept, maybe some mattresses. And the cameraman I was with said, don't eat their food, because we'll eat later on. And that's all they have, and they've been fasting and you haven't. But this woman put out, this mother, Muhammad, put out all the food that she had, and that was all, was a plate of leaves, of salad leaves, a plate of hummus, and a plate of bread. And I said, no, thank you, I'm fine. Please, please, fadal, fadal. And I saw children's faces looking around the corner. And I knew that what I ate would be denying them. And she wanted me to eat it all, and I said to her, and I became really angry. This anger built up, and I said, this is ridiculous. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of seeing Muslims giving away everything. I'm sick of seeing you fasting. Why are you fasting? You know, you do without food for 30 days, day 31 you're still hungry. You do without water 30 days, day 31 the water in Gaza is undrinkable. What is the point in your fast? And this mother with nothing said, I fast in Ramadan to remember the poor. Although she had nothing, she didn't feel poor, because one day in the holy month she had meat to give her children, and one day in the holy months Allah had brought a guest to her house so she could get rewards for that. And that gratitude entered my heart like a light, and I thought, if this is Islam, I want to be Muslim. If there is a faith which sees you through this kind of hardship, I want to be Muslim. And if there is a faith that makes you so generous to a stranger that you'd even delay feeding your children out of love for God, knowing that his reward is with you and your children, wow, that is some faith. But I was stubborn, and I left. And as soon as I got outside the door, I forgot about Allah. Do you know what is really amazing and really a great blessing is? Allah never forgot about me. Allah never forgot about me. And it took another 2 years, but after another beautiful experience in the mosque, I said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. By the grace of Allah, I accepted Islam. That's my story. May Allah accept it. Please remember me and my daughters in your du'as. And I pray for you, and I pray for all of the people in the world, and I pray for the Muslims to be united and for all oppression to end. Assalamu alaikum.
So we really hope you enjoyed that.
For the 21 video series, everything you ever wanted to know about Islam and the Muslim culture,
but couldn't be bothered to ask,
click the link in the top right of the screen.
Also, please subscribe by clicking the red button below if you haven't already done so. We want to reach as many people as we possibly can.
Thank you once again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.
Assalamu alaikum
wa rahmatullahi
wa barakatuh. Bismillah.